We will try to learn the Sikha Beis, Pashas Bey Chelek Zayin. I'm going to learn mainly the Pnim of the Sikha, maybe some of the Ha'aras, but mainly we're going to focus on the Pnim of the Sikha. The Rebbe says as follows. In the Heintige Seder, beim Tzibur of Korban Pesach, wo der Eibishter, was der Eibishter hat angesagt zu Moshe Rabbeinu, in the command of Korban Pesach, sagt der Pasuk, says, you have to prepare a Korban Pesach. And in the Revite, the Kipsukim, it says, so yem lachidish hazeh, v'shochat away to kol kahala das yisrael ben nachbayim. And then it says in the Pasuk, v'ochulus habasa balayla hazeh, tzle'eshu matzis amrein michlu. There are two mitzvahs in the Pasuk, one the shchitas HaKorban Pesach, and one the achilas HaKorban Pesach. The Rambam Sefer HaMitzvahs rechnet the mitzvah from Korban Pesach for zwei mitzvahs. The Rambam separates them into two mitzvahs. Ein mitzvah is lishchet HaPesach be'em abos u'bilisim ben arbaim. V'uomri yisal v'shachatu eisei kol kahala das is all ben arbaim. That's the pasuk and the mitzvah, which the Rambam considers as one mitzvah, the shchitas HaPesach. And the zweite, separate mitzvah, second mitzvah, lechel kesef keves HaPesach v'leil chamishos b'nissen b'tnoyevan. It's got him to eat the Korban Pesach with the conditions which the Rambam mentioned before, which the Rebbe will talk later. Bring later, who Omre that says in Pasuk, so we have two separate mitzvahs, one of Shchitas HaPesach and one of Achilas HaKorban Pesach. Frek me the Ruv the Kasha, Rav Daniel Abavli in the Sefer, Ma'aser Nisim es the Kasha. The Rambam Motalei gegeben dem Klal, the Rambam writes in Sefer HaShirosh, in Sefer HaMitzvahs, in the Shiroshim, a general rule for how he writes the mitzvahs, how he separates them or makes them into one mitzvah, and he writes as follows. When they have a few things and each one is ma'akiv, in other words, one without the other is not a mitzvah, you have to do the second one in order that it should be considered a mitzvah. One without the other is not a mitzvah. So when you have two pratim and each one is ma'akiv the other, it's one mitzvah. Another thing that Rambam writes over there, everything which will be explained, that the end result, you're not going to get to the end, to the result, with just one of these two parts. That both together, this creates and makes the mitzvah which you're going to do. Two different pratim which will bring out to Hein, Ebazeif, and the Kashi is, Spalter Korban Pesach paskin the Rambam. As on Achilas HaPesach in the Chach the mitzvah from Korban Pesach, the Rambam writes without Achil, you're not mekayim the mitzvah. Where does the Rambam write this? He writes in Halacha that Nimnu Olav, if a whole bunch of people appointed themselves, they gathered, they signed up for a Korban Pesach. Korban Pesach has to be eaten. So a whole bunch of people signed themselves up. They were Nimna on the Korban Pesach. And others added themselves on and signed up for the same Korban Pesach later. So Rambam Paskins, the same. If there's a Kazayis, in other words, the whole first group of people have enough of Kazayis, they eat the Korban Pesach, and therefore they don't have to make Korban Pesach. Those who added themselves some sharabu afterwards, achalinim to make Kazayis cholechot. There is not a Kazayis of Achila as a Korban Pesach cholechot. They don't eat, and therefore Chayavim lasis Pesach Sheni. So we see from this mitzvah that Achilas HaPesach is a Tnai, which is Ma'akiv, the Kiyum HaMitzvah. This is the first cloud that the Rambam brings down, that the Daniel Abavli brings down from the Shiroshim. That the Chuis come in. Ashchitas and Achilas HaPesach are the mitzvah achas, because each one is Ma'akiv the other. So therefore, it has to be more mitzvah. And Favos Telteze Fanand, the Telteze in Sve Bezunder mitzvahs. Why does Rambam separate them into two different mitzvahs if they're ma'akiv each other? And Nachman, the Rebbe goes on. I feel like the day is a machlekes in Gemara between Chachamim. The first day is the Chachamim that it's ma'akiv, and I feel according to the day is which Gemara brought on him Sochim that as Achilas HaPesach is nish ma'akiv da akrova. In other words, if you're making Korban Pesach, don't eat, you still make the mitzvah of a Krovas Korban Pesach. It's the Chaber der Teuchen, der Tachlis von mitzvahs Krovas Pesach, verbunden mit Achilas HaPesach. But my Pesach lei bo mit Chilosei elo la'achila. In other words, that this this shaila is basically l'cha'ira, I think, based on the second cloud which the Rabbi Daniel Ababli brings down from the Sefer HaShiroshim. Even if it's not ma'akiv, still the tachlis hamavukosh is achilas hapesach. But achilas hapesach, by korban pesach, ein bo elo l'miyot. Underfahren, because ein bo elo l'achila is a pesach shebo betuma, nechel betuma. If it's makriv in the ephod that you're allowed to be makriv betuma, according to the halachas, which is makriv, which you're allowed to be makriv betuma, then you can even eat it betuma. Why can you even eat it betuma? Because vorum kshenetstave ikera pesach la'achila nestave. The korban pesach l'chatchila for the achilas pesach. B'meila, even if it's not ma'akev, but still the tachlis hamavukosh is the achilas pesach. Is for was sollen sie nicht starten werden als ein mitzvah based on this second klal which the Rabbi Daniel Abavli brought down in the previous paragraph. So the shaila is, why does the Rambam separate them into two mitzvahs? For effort of them, Rabbi Avram and Rambam in the Sefer Ma'aser Nisim, Rabbi Avram answered, and the answer is like this: as there einteilen zwei mitzvahs, why did the Rambam separate them? It's to leave them, but the shechita is abhängig in ein Zman, and the achila in an anderes Zman. Mitzvahs shechita is biyoim arba'asa. Being that they're in two separate times, this is by 14th a day, and this is the 15th by night, therefore it's two different mitzvahs. One thing, another thing, in the Lashon in the Sefer Ma'aser Nisim is v'oid. It says v'oid noch. Was tells if another, whatever. That shchitas haPesach is a mitzvah sheyesh bo kodes. If you don't make the shchitas haPesach, you chayv kodes. Dagegen nachilosei. Gleich zu anderen Mitzvahs Asei, was nicht gebunden mit Einisch von Kodes. Und der Rebbe teaches, aber hat makriv gewinnt den Korban Pesach bis Manei, und hat es nicht gegessen, belelt es wohl. He was makriv, but he didn't eat. Hat mekayim gewinnt die Mitzvah von Shchitas HaPesach, und ist Potter von Kodes. Und darf euch nicht bringen in Korban Pesach. So being that there is two different inyonim in the Korban Pesach, the hakrove, if chas v'chalila you're not makir b'chayv kodes, according to if you don't do it b'mezid or whatever the halachas of shibadavar, masha'enkin the achila, even if you don't eat, you're not chayv kodes. So it's two types of mitzvahs b'chlal, and therefore the Rambam separates them into two different mitzvahs. So in other words, according to Rabbi Avram ben Rambam, he answers the shaila, why is it considered like two different mitzvahs? It's considered like two different mitzvahs, whether, in other words, we're both nekudas, which the Rabbi asked before, even if it's ma'akev, still, being that it's, even if it's ma'akev, or according to the second part of the shaila, if it's not ma'akev, it's all one thing, still, at the end of the day, it's two different times or two different types of mitzvahs. One is chayiv kodesh, one is not chayiv kodesh, and therefore it's considered like two different mitzvahs. Over here, just one little piece of the Ha'ara 16, because according to what the Rebbe says over here, brings down over here from Abraham ben Rambam, the difference of the achilas hakorban pesach and akrovas hakorban pesach. That achila is not M'chayev any kodesh, and you even don't have to, if you don't eat, you don't even have to be a korban pesach. What's the pshat in the halacha which the Rabbi Daniel Ababli brought down from the Rambam, that the second people who added themselves on that and they don't have a kazayis, they don't eat, and turim maases pesach sheni, and they're not even chayev kodesh. So the Rebbe says in the beginning, just of Ha'ara 16, that Avram and Rambam holds, Shadin, which the Daniel Ababli brought from the Rambam before, Shenimnu Olav, Bechozru Achenu V'nimnu, Zeh She'achreinim Shalei Nimtza B'Kezayis L'chol Echot, Einon Eichlim Chulu. I think that the main shaila over here is not from the Einon Eichlim, because Einon Eichlim Echil is not Makif, but that they don't have to make a korban Pesach Sheni. What's Why don't they have to make a korban pasuk sheni if it would be a din in the achila? It's a double apostle that you don't have to make it. The achila is not ma'akev b'chlal, so you have to say that this is a din b'shchitose. That according to Avram and Rambam, he holds that the halacha is the fact, as the Rabbi goes on. Because there is no kezayis enough for them. So Malchatchila, the shchita is not chal on them. B'meile v'balt, it's not chal mit chila hamini shelehem. Because ein shechten elul mnuyot. B'meile, the minui is not chal on them. B'meile, if the minui is not chal on them, so the fact that they don't eat, not because they didn't eat, because if just because they didn't eat, they would not have to make a korban pesach sheni, because the achila is not ma'akev. The reason why they have to bring a korban pesach sheni is only malchatchila. The shchita is not even chal on them, because the shchita should be royal lechel korban pesach. Mashenkin, if they don't have malchatchila kazayis and that, so the whole minu is not chal. If the mini is not chal, so the shchit is not chal. If the shchit is not chal, so then you have to bring a korban pesach. So mainly, I think that's the ikir what the Rebbe is bothering about. What's he trying to explain over here? Even though he doesn't even mention that part, he just merames it with chulu. He sings the ene eichlim, but the ene eichlim is not beikir the shad over here. The ikir the shad, I think, is from the chulu. The chulu, the rest of the loch. Why the chayiv a korban? Why the chayiv bring a korban pesach? Why are the chayiv chaser chalila kodes? That is because the shchita is malachatchila not chal. And then the Rebbe continues on the rest of the order, but this is again, I'm trying to learn only what's negated to the pnim the havon in the pnim of the sich. The Rebbe is mamshich in siv beis. Es is aber noch als nit glatik. Vier Rebbe Avram ben Rambam is mevur beiker as leidas Rambam is achilas hapesach bepoil nish ma'akev. And therefore, bepoil nish ma'akev, v'balt ober bepoil nish ma'akev, but made of both nekudas of the what Rab Daniel Abavli brought down from the Shiroshim. So the nish ma'akev, but it's also even the tachlis hamavukesh. It's not ma'akev, so therefore it's tachlis hamavukesh, the second klal. But still you separate into two different mitzvahs. Correct, but the Rebbe, and over here, the Rebbe is going to bring a third part, chedik in the Shedish mitzvahs. Bibalt, aber da chile for the tachlis von Shchitz HaPesach. Und der Rebbe dafür sein, roil, achille b'shas HaKravose. Haben sie gedacht, verrechnen werden wir ein Mitzvah. Mit der Rambam allein schreibt, die Shlosh mitzvahs, a third nekuda, shafilu achalokim, she'enen ma'akvim zeh. And it doesn't mean only ma'akiv. Even a thing that is not the tachlis hamavukesh, so in other words, even if you're going to say that it's not ma'akiv, even if you're going to say it's the tachlis hamavukesh, aber vibalt it's two different nekudas, aber sof kol sof, vibalt as the nekudas, the whole thing is the tachlis, is the achilas hapesach. And that's why it has to be roy lachila kaponim b'shas hashchita. So that shows that is sof kol sof, the aim of the mitzvah. Sof kol sof, it should have been only one mitzvah. Oich the Rebbe asks, the whole reasoning is also not understood. Oich der tam hashchita sapesach vachelos is eine besondere mitzvah, weil jeder von sie hat ihr besonderes man. In other words, the first tenets of Rabbi Avram, the first chiluk. The chiluk in the Zman. The Rebbe is not talking about the second chiluk chiv kodesh. He's talking about the first one. Then has the Rebbe says fordert has border. Weil mir findet doch kame mitzvahs, was die Proti am mitzvahs haben besondere Zeiten von Chiyuv und sie sind nicht ma'akev in dem zweiten. Und von deswegen rechnen sie der Rambam als ein Mitzvah. Der Rebbe brings down in Hora 18 and 20, the three mitzvahs of Krishma, Temidim, Korban Temidim. Krishma is Babeker, Shachris and Be'erev. Korban Tamid is Babeker Be'erev. Kteres is Babeker Be'erev. There are two paratim in the mitzvah. and each one is not ma'akiv the other. If you read Krishma in the morning, you don't read at night, you mekayim the mitzvahs Krishma. If you read at night and not morning, you mekayim the mitzvah. If you ma'akiv the Talmud in the morning, you're not mekayim the mitzvah. It's not ma'akiv. But for Pekain, it's considered as one, that Rambam writes them as one mitzvah. And al-ched over here, the shaila is b'makol shekain. In other words, what I mean by b'makol shekain is that the Kriya Shema of the morning is the Kriya Shema of the night is not a parat in the mitzvah of the Kriya Shema in the morning. It's just one mitzvah. It just happens to be in two different times, one mitzvah. You say that what is considered one mitzvah. In the halachas kama v'kama, when you're talking about the korban pesach and the achila, which the achila is a part of the korban pesach, of the shchitas of korban pesach, it's even more so that it should be considered one mitzvah. L'cha'ira, I mean, l'cha'ira over here, the shaila is not stam a comparison to the mitzvah of Krishma and Ketores and Tamidim. It's been makol shekain. L'cha'ira. Sif Gimel, the Rebbe goes on. He says like this: "Vet man das verstehen behegdim noch a shaila, was man kann fragen in dem. Bei Korban Chatos steht ein Posuk, Tishochet HaChatos, wir gehen hakoyin am Chata ise ichlem." In other words, there's two mitzvahs: the Shchitas HaChatos, and there's the Achilas that the Kohen has to eat. Von deswegen rechnet nicht der Rambam Achilas HaChatos als a mitzvah saseh bechatos b'fnei yatzim. Nor das Koile zusammen mit Achilas Shara Kodesh. Achilas HaChatos, even though it says a specific pasuk that you should eat the Kohen has to eat the Chatos, it's not a specific mitzvah of Achilas HaChatos. It's part of the Achilas of all the Kochim. And the Rebbe brings that Shetzuva HaKoyanim Lechel B'sar Kochim Kloimar HaChatos Oshom Shem Kochim V'shar Kochim Kloimar Kedoshim Kalim Achilosem Gamken Negredes Achar HaMitzvah. So in other words, we don't find that Achilas HaChatos is a separate mitzvah. In other words, the shaila is not why does it separate as it's in 123 that it was Marich and Derif, but it's again, it's a side issue. I'm not going to talk about it, but it's not the shaila is why is Achilas HaChatos and Shchitas HaChatos not one mitzvah. The Rambam clear writes about two different mitzvahs. The shaila over here is going to be is nicht verstandig for was rechnet der Rambam Achilas HaPesach als a mitzvah saseh b'fnei atzmei und nicht als a prat von der klolis dike mitzvah an Achilas Kochim. Was Pesach doch kechet Kochim Kalim. Just like Achilas HaChatos is not a specific mitzvah, a separate mitzvah. It's part of the general mitzvah of Achilas, or the Kochim, well, and including Kochim Kalim. And a Korban Pesach and a Kochim Kalim. So why is it that Rambam over here writes Achilas, Korban Pesach as a specific mitzvah? Why shouldn't it be part of the general mitzvah, Achilas Kochim? And the Rebbe writes in order 24, you could be machalik, the Rebbe says. The Achilas are kochim, who has to eat? The Kohanim have to eat. So all the kochim are one general thing. The Rebbe quotes for Maisar Kabonis, but expect Yud, kochim oich noshna koyanim, right? Mashenke, the Rebbe adds at the end, right? Mashenke in the Korban Pesach. Korban Pesach has to be eaten by the Bailim. So it's two different things. So maybe that's the reason why the Achilas of Korban Pesach is not included in general mitzvahs. The Rebbe concludes at the end of the order, Harei b'cholei move on, Achilas HaPesach hu mitzvah. It's talking of a mitzvah. Yeah, it's not eaten by the Bailim, but it's a mitzvah. Sof kasov Pesach is a kochim kalim. Lama le nichlal b'mitzvahs aseh haklolis achilas hakochim. Sheyesh al zeh tzivui b'fnei atzmei. Hare gam chatos ba'oshim yes b'chol echad tzivui b'fnei atzmei. Yes, there's a tzivui b'fnei atzmei achilas hakochim Pesach, but each korban is there's in the Torah and the pasuk there's a tzivui b'achilas chatos and a tzivui b'achilas ha'oshim. Nevertheless, it's all included. So l'cha'ira ebazei. The Korban Pesach is also Kochim Kalim, and it's eaten by the Bailim. Mashing the Korban, all the Korban is eaten by the by the by the Kohanim. Still, it's the one mitzvah as I say. It's achilas hakochim. Sure, it should be considered as one. As the one mitzvah. And the Rebbe says in order 25 that this shaila can be asked, say according to the Das Rabbi Daniel Abavli, and say according to Rabbi Avram ben Avram, as the Rebbe says. Kushizu yesh lahakshis beinim nema the mitzvah achilas korban pesach prat bahakravosoi. As he asks, it's all one mitzvah. Why does that be separated? It's a prat bahakravosoi. Why can Yisrael shall, according to his opinion, that again bechatos av dachilas akenim nishlemes hakapora. The kapora of the chatas of the person who's being chatas is nishlam not only with the akrovas akenim chatas, the kenim have to eat it. As the Gemara says, akenim eichlim abaylim eskapim, so it has to be eaten. Nevertheless, nichlal ba'mitzvah saseh dachilas kochim v'leike chelik ma'maisa akrova. The korban pesach is nichlal in the general mitzvah achilas hakochim, not a part of the akrova. So according to him, you can ask the shaila, why is the korban pesach not nichlal in the klolas the mitzvah of achilas hakochim? V'gam lifidas Avram and Avram she'ein ikichel mitzvah akrova pesach, as he answers because of the two zmanim, or this is kodesh, not kodesh, different separate mitzvahs I say. But sofkol sov mekivashi achilas kochim. It's sofkol sov achilas kochim, as the Rebbe brings out in the end of the previous order. Efshe shetuchla b'mitzvah say the achilas kochim. It could be included in the general mitzvah of achilas hakochim of all the other kabbonis. So why is it separated as a mitzvah asay b'fnei yatzim? Why is achilas korban pesach separated as a mitzvah asay? Achilas pesach separated. It's another shayla, not the shayla, but different shayla. Is the beer in them? The Rebbe explains, simple explains. The Rebbe says the bishmak beer. The Rambam allein did das mas b'dik l'shein. The Rambam answers it. What does the Rambam write? Shetzivonu lechel pesach pesach b'leil chamisha osa ben nisan b'tnoi v'neskarim. He stresses the date, as we're soon going to point out. What's it tnoi v'neskarim? What tnoim? Shehu sheyitzli v'sheyechel b'bayis echad sheyochel b'bayis echad v'sheyochel al matzis amereinim v'uamri v'ochel sabasa b'layla azetzli matzis amereinim yichlu. In other words, there's a whole bunch of dinim which are specified in the Zman Achivas. The Rebbe will bring it out. Will bring it out soon. More the Nekuda. In other words, the date and the ditzvus is all a part of the Etzem Hatzivul. And in order 28, 26, the Rebbe brings a whole bunch of more places where the Rambam talks about the Achilas HaKorban, Achilas Pesach Pesach, and always with the date that Achilas HaPesach is Bela Chamish Osir, and all the other dinim. And the Rebbe specifies a whole different places where the halacha is. And then in the end, it brings one place where she leaves out the date. But all the other places, the date and the dinim are part of the tzivul. Das heißt, der Rebbe back to the pnim, der mitzvah, was the Torah sagt on atzol tnoim gedorim in der mitzvah von Achilas Pesach, nicht wie bei Korban Chatas, was steht stam. Over there, it also says, it only says that he has to eat. It doesn't say the date, it doesn't say when, it doesn't say how, with what. It says specifically the date and the tnoy. Mit dem, sagt der Rebbe, tell the Torah is dem Chiyuv von Achilas HaPesach as a besonderer mitzvah. We see the difference of Achilas HaPesach to all other Achilas from all the Kochim. Achilas HaPesach has in the Gedera mitzvah the date, the dinim has to be how it has to be. Mashenkin all other kabbalas. Unazoyde sechet ben the shechita for korban pesach as well, as he brings in the Howard 27. That when the Rambam talks about the korban pesach, he also specifies the date. V'chein berechichas korban pesach mitzvah sasel lishkat pesach barbo so benisten. Ubeminyan mitzvah lishkat pesach bizmanoi. The Rebbe brings why in the Sefer HaMitzvahs it doesn't write Bismanei. The Rebbe says because he just Begoimen, and Begoimen he relies on then and the pasuk, and then the pasuk says Ben Arbaim. Again, it says Legabe the dinim of Korban Pesach side the Achila, which has the date and the Tnoim that has to be how you eat it, and same thing also the Shechita in the Etzem HaMitzvah says when it has to be eaten. Mashenkin all the other Korbanos. Besignan Achasas, the Rebbe the same Nekuda but a different signen, or behesem zum Teuchen von Divrei Rabbi Avraham and Rambam, because the Rebbe wants to be masbir the hasbara in the terrace of the Rambam from Rabbi Avraham and Rambam, as he asked the Chelek before. Even though the Rabbi Avraham explains it sof, it's the Chil is part of that mitzvah. It's not ma'akeh, but it's part of the mitzvah. Why should it be separated as a separate mitzvah from the shechita? So Rabbi now is talking about the inyan of Achilas Pesach, legabe Achilas of all kochim. But he's going to bring it back to the hasbara, why Achila is separated from the Shizman Ashkita, which is original. What's what Rabbi says? Bald the mitzvah Ashkita is angesagt geworden zusammen und in Verbindung mit ihr bestimmten Zman. Und die mitzvah Achila ist angesagt geworden zusammen mit an anderen für ihr bestimmten Zman und mit noch eine Achila. The Shkita says it's time. The Zman Achila, the mitzvah Achila says it's time and more than it. Is moving, the Rebbe goes on. Also, der Unterschied in Zman zwischen Schittes HaPesach und Achilas HaPesach ist nicht in Klolli ist dicker Ingen von Achilas Kochim, was bemeiler das euch da in der Mitzvah. Al derich, wie wir gefunden bei Kabbonis, was der Akrava darf sein, darf die bei Yom Koyetze beset. All the other Karbonis, it says by Yom, but it's just one Klolli, it has to be by Yom, without specifying specifically anything more about that specific carbon. So it's a general mitzvah. Mashenk in carbon Pesach, we see that it's not just a hemshech and a result, the b'meila from all other carbones. It has a specific time. When the Rambam talks about the mitzvah, Achilas, carbon Pesach, he always stresses there is a certain time for it. Not as kommt als gedet in der mitzvah. Mitzvah Schittes HaPesach besteht in dem, was man darf es schechten, b'yoyim arba, so bin es in beina arbei. Und bei Mitzvah Achilas Pesach besteht in der Tzivonu. And what is the command of the Achila? In ihr teuchen begeder, also man darf es essen, beleil chamishos benissen. Und die andere Tnoimen alle has mitzli, and whatever the Rambam mentioned before. Und mit der Ruf, rechnen sie sich als besondere Mitzvahs. In other words, over here, the Rebbe is explaining what is the nekuda why Achilas HaKorban Pesach and Shchitas HaKorban Pesach is the main thing over here is talking about Achilas HaKorban Pesach. The Achilas HaKorban Pesach is not included in the general din of Achilas HaKochim because Achilas HaKorban Pesach, the tzivui of Achilas HaPesach is commanded and said in the Torah and with its special tnoim, its special time and a special when of Achila. Whereas all other kabbanis just have a general time of Ayoim. Mashenk Korban Pesach is separate. And the Rebbe explains in Order 29, Behemshich, to what we learned before, the difference, and as I explained before, there's a kavachema from the mitzvah of Krishma and Akteres and the Rebbe brings before the Korban Tamid. The Rebbe explains the difference, and the Rebbe asked before, Shaila, that l'chayda over there, it's all included in one mitzvah. And as I explained before, it's over here will be included in one mitzvah because the achila and is part of the akrovas hakorban. Akaponim the teuchen is that it should be atorn, as I explained before. So the Rebbe says, you see the difference in this as well. Behind Shizman kol echad nemar biyachad. I'm reading a little bit of Order 29. Behind Shizman kol echad nemar biyachad im etzem mitzvah. This is what the Rebbe is stressing over here. Mashenke ba mitzvah shuvel el. All the other three mitzvahs. Mikivish teichen echel hem bebeis as manim. It's one teichen. Saying Krishma, Kabbalah say Malchus Shemayim, Kabbalah say mitzvahs, whatever it is. That's the one teichen. Nemar atzivah shalahem mitzvah echad. The Tzibur said, what? As it's mentioned with the Barkabon. The mitzvah is the same. And then, V'achakach b'falet asmanim. Shach b'chov k'mecha. But the Ikin mitzvah, the Nekuda, the Techana mitzvah says it separately, not together with the time. But Mele, it's like two different mitzvahs. In other words, in the pasuk, if the pasuk would say, you can say the same thing over here also. It's an exact same Korban Pesach. But the pasuk doesn't say like that. It says the batabam b'shivtecha b'bisacha b'lachtecha b'derech, and then it says the v'shach mechov k'mecha, which we from there we learn the mitzvahs aseh by Beikir and by Erev. If it would be like the same thing as a Korban Pesach, that the toichin of it is that it has to be b'shach mechov k'mecha in the morning at the time, and in the night the b'shach mechov k'mecha l'chayim should have said right away. The pasuk is mechalik b'neim. If Amel is an eye again, and it's different than the Korban Pesach. Korban Pesach, as explains in the Pnimis, the toichen of the Korban should be Nikrav. The Shechita should be by Yemar Ba'asar. The Achila should be by Leilas, and that's toichen of the mitzvah. Mashenki Krishma, the toichen of the mitzvah is one, the same thing as Korban as in the morning and night. Kabbalah Semal Kishmayim, with the Bartabam. You should say Krishma. So by Mel over there, it's like a one mitzvah. Mashenki over here. And this is the hemshech on how it's explained. This teichen explains also the shaila and the hasbara in the Rabbi Avram ben Arambam. The nekuda was the Rabbi explaining over here in the Pnimis why achila of the Korban Pesach is not part of the achila of all kodesh. But derech memela betach veremphet also the shaila why the achila of Korban Pesach and the Shechita of Korban Pesach is also two different mitzvahs, different than Krishma and so on. Because being that Achille, the Teichen of the mitzvahs to eat it at night, Chamish also, and the Shechita, the Teichen of the mitzvahs to be makriv with B'yem Yudalin, that's part of the mitzvah. So it's two different mitzvahs. It's totally two different things. This is B'yem Abba Dalin, and this is Mashenkin, Krishma, and Achteres, and Korban Talmud. The Teichen of the mitzvah is one. It only happens to be that then the Torah says that teichen should be done in the morning, one in the evening. Oh, but the teichen is one. If the teichen is one, it's one mitzvah. Masha'inkin over the hakrov, the shchidas hakorban Pesach, and nachilas hakorban Pesach. We bow at the teichen of the mitzvah is connected with two different zmanim. But mela, it's two different mitzvahs. That is the teichen, the hasbara, which the Rebbe is bringing this back to the hasbara in Avram ben Arambam. Of the Rambam to the Rabbi Avram also, it says the second was the chilik of the chayiv kodesh. Then the Rebbe's mamshich in Ha'ara 31 also very interesting thing. I'm not going to learn the whole order. The Nekuda. The Rambam brings which pasuk like the Korban Pesach, the pasuk which is in Parshas Bay, V'shochet away. The Meforshim, as the Rebbe brings later down in few paragraphs later, ask that this talking before Matan Torah. So that's why they bring the pasuk in Parshas B'Haleischa. V'yasu b'nei Yisrael es ha'pesach b'moyadei. Why does the Rambam not learn this pasuk? According to what the Rebbe explains over here, is very interesting, very geschmack. The pasuk in Parshas B'Haleischa v'yasu b'nei Yisrael b'moyadei doesn't say the time. The Rambam wants to bring out that the Shchitas ha'pesach, the gather of Shchitas HaPesach is connected with a certain zman. The gather of Achilas HaPesach is connected with a certain zman, and that's why it comes to different mitzvahs. To answer the Hasbara, the Shiloh, why it's to different mitzvahs. So, but Mele, you can bring the pasuk from Va'aleischa, which doesn't have in a specific time. So he has to bring the pasuk of Parshas Bay, which is specifying the time. The Rebbe says it's before Matan Torah. So the Rebbe says in the third paragraph, many mitzvahs. The kama mitzvahs b'Pesach l'meidim rak mahanema b'Parshas Zu b'negei l'Pesach Mitzrayim. So the mela, that's not such a kasha. But akaponim, it's more important to bring the pasuk in Parshas Boy over the pasuk Parshas B'Aleischa, because over here it brings out what is the teichen of the mitzvahs of Hakravas Shchidas Korban Pesach, and what is the teichen of the mitzvah of Achilas Korban Pesach, in order to explain why it's two different mitzvahs, not one mitzvah. And then the Rebbe brings in order 33 that Sofkal Sof. That's Sofkal Sof. It's Sofkal Sof part of the Achilas of all Kachim. So Enochanami, the Rebbe is bringing out over here that the mitzvahs of eating Korban Pesach is a separate mitzvah. Of a Sofkal Sof, it's a Kachim Kalim. So the Rebbe says, besides the mitzvah, there is also Yesh Machilas Pesach. Gam mitzvahs achilas kochim k'mishu kochim k'avim achreinim. It brings out from different achreinim because sof kol sof it's part of the Korban Pesach, part of the general mitzvah of achilas hakochim, and therefore it's also included. The Rebbe's mamshich in Siv Dalet And he says weiter. So upon him the Weile, we have a hasbara, and l'chayra everything in the Nekuda is answered, and the Sikh already is answered. The shaila why Achilas HaKorban Pesach is not included in the Achilas of Shar Kochim, it's a separate mitzvah, is because that has a specific time, not like in the Shar Kochim, that it's a general mitzvah by Yoim, to eat it by Yoim. So therefore, that's why Korban Pesach, Achilas Korban Pesach is a separate mitzvah. And b'derech mamele, vet eichet verempfert, why Achilas Korban Pesach and mitzvahs of Achilas Korban Pesach is two different mitzvahs, because the Rambam specifies that each teichen of each mitzvah has its gedorim. The geder is the shechita b'yoyim, and the geder of Achila is balayla, b'shechamisha balayla, with its tnoyim as the Rambam specifies. Then the Rebbe goes on with another nukud. Euch beim Chiyuv von Korban Pesach in Pesach Sheni, was das Rambam idos a regel b'fnei atzmei b'funishin, not at the shlumim l'rishin, and that's why it's considered a mitzvah asayil b'fnei atzmei, as the Rebbe brings down in Hora 34. Tell the Rambam voneinander sein Schchite und sein Achille und zählt sie als zwei besondere mitzvahs, zwei besondere mitzvahs. The Rebbe explains, das ist ich moving like in selben time wie gesagt bei Korban Pesach Rishon. Der Achille darf sein al matzis am Redim, und in der Rund besteht der Zivonu und Teuchen von Mitzvahs Achille es Pesach Sheni. There has to be eaten al matzis am Redim. B'meila, it has a certain gather, a certain mitzvah. That's what you have to say. In other words, that's why the mitzvahs of Achilles Korban Pesach and the Shchitas Korban Pesach Sheni are two different mitzvahs, because the mitzvah Achila has a specific din. It has to be eaten al matzah samareda. The male is separated. Fragt aber der Rebbe, es ist aber nicht movement. For was wird mitzvahs Achilles Pesach Sheni nicht nichlal in the mitzvah von Achilles Pesach Belil Chamisha also benishn? We explaining now that Be'etzim even Korban Pesach should have been separated. It should be part of the Achilles of Ulakot. Why is it separated? Because it has a specific mitzvah. What's a mitzvah? That it has to be eaten. It has to be eaten on matzah mered. But being that Korban Pesach Sheni is also the same mitzvah, the teuchen mitzvah is eat it on matzah meredim. So why is it not nichlal in the achila of Korban Pesach Rishon? And the Rebbe continues on, Chod is ein eingestellter besonderes Mannen, this is Yudal Benissen, this Yudal Beir. Sie dich aber in der Teichen derselbe Mitzvah. What is the Teichen? A chiyuv zu essen im Korban Pesach al matzis am Reidem. When? In der Nacht noch der Hakrove. In other words, you makrev it at a certain time, and then the night after you eat. So just like by Achille b'meile kommt derselbe Mitzvah in zwei Zmanim. If the Akrove is given by Yudal Benissen, darf sein die Achille belel Tesva Benissen. Und if the Akrove is demselben, given by Yudal Beir, darf sein die Achille belel Tesva Beir. So even though it's like two different Zmanim, but sof kol sof, the Nekuda is that it has to be eaten a half a day after the Akrove. And the Rebbe explains, and you need that l'cha'ira in the Havana in Ha'ora 38. Over Farache, but mitzvah achalosei of Korban Pesach Sheni ain't before his man. Doesn't say at a specific time. If it would say a specific time, then you can say, oh, it's two different zmanim, but maybe it's two different mitzvahs. In the pasuk doesn't say it's man. What says there over there? Only al matzis and berei michlu. When does it say as man? Zam mani neman. Betchilas hakasuv, benegel asiyosei, when you makriv the Korban Pesach, b'chedesh Hashem ba'abos, so ben yaso. So b'meila, being that in this man achilas Korban Pesach Hashem doesn't say a specific time, so the nekud of the time is only that you do it a half a day, the night after the akrova. So b'meila, basically you do the night after it's akrova. Pesach Sheni you do it the night after it's akrova. Aber Teuchen and Mitzvah is all the same thing. A matzah is a bereit mechlulu, just like the Korban Pesach Rishon. Over meaning a mitzvah that Rabbi Mamshech and Order 38 Shom. Lechel is a Psara Pesach Sheni Hamatzis a Mishanem. But because it's Manik Pesach Edition, also the same thing. In Chanaya, that the Zman over here is not part of the Nikuda of the Itoichen mitzvah. You dalit be you tesvav be'ir. The Zman is only that has to be eaten the night after the Krava. Well, that's the same thing as a Korban Pesach Edition. And being that the Teuchen and mitzvahs are Matzis and Merei Michlu, is the same thing as Pesach Edition. So, but the Shaila, why is it not included in the mitzvah of Achilles Pesach Edition? Why is it a specific 7 mitzvahs? So if the Rebbe not the beer in them is. Hagam, you might frage, gerät, seine Schitis Pesach and Achilles, beide gebunden mit Seheres Mann. Beäufen, das macht sie zwei besondere Mitzvahs, der Schchitte und der Achille. Ist aber da ein Unterschied zwischen sie in dem Zman, wie die Gebundenheit mit dem Zman wirkt und direkt sich aus. There's a difference in Korban Pesach Edition and Korban Pesach Sheni. And as it brings out the Nukuda even Lahoyer, Mishino, in the Hara 40, the Menegel Pesach Rishon said, Lishchitas HaPesach Bismanoi. That means that the Zman is a Nukuda in what do you call it, in the Teuchen Mitzvah. And Bachila Lechel Pesach Pesach Sheni doesn't say Bisman, it says Belel Chamisha also. But again, Achila Bisman says on the Belel Chamisha also. So by Mele, in other words, we see that the Achila has a specific reason in the Chelel Chamisha also, not just the Nukud of Bisman. What is it, the Chilik? Zogt der Rebbe. That Yudalit V'Nissen is a Yontif Diketog, nor it's them was the Yamul Dishchitis HaPesach. The day is a regular day. It becomes a Yontif because you make it become Pesach. Aber mitzad atzmi, hot it kimtzis miyuchedes. It's a regular day, like all other days in this. Dagegen, aber Leil Chabishos Benissen is ausgeteilt euch, v'adara bebeike als a Yontif mitzad atzmi. The night, not because the Korban Pesach is the night. The night is because it's a Yontif, and therefore you eat it that night. What is it? Und das ist das Mann ist Mitzrayim. Und wenn das ist gewesen zum ersten Mal, aber warte wird es sein bei Leila selber, Keis kom Chere Pasachti Alechem, und Leil Shmunim Hu Lashem Lekecha Lashem Leitzim Eretz Mitzrayim. Und der Pasuk sagt, Tziacha Hashem Lekechem Mitzrayim Laila, und to leave them, to leave the Chivas Hazman, because it's this man, the Mitzis Mitzrayim, as he brings an order at 47, who come Hashem and God, the Pesach, show you Oichlim, and say, Al Shema, Al Shem Shepasa, because the Ebish took the Ras Mitzrayim, that's why he commanded us, in the Mitzis Mitzrayim. Because of the Das man, is Mitzis Mitzrayim, is do damot the mitzvah for Achilas HaPesach. While there is a Shchitas HaPesach, but you don't listen. The Shchita is a half a day before this man of the Achila, which is man Achila, is because of Yitzias Mitzrayim. And this is aber bei Pesach Sheni. Achilos über Tesvav Nissen is nicht verbunden mit damit, was ist Tesvav Beir. As man von Yontif. It's not as man von Yontif, it's a regular day. Okay, it's a nor, below is the Fav, but das ist the Nacht, was noch die Hakrova für Yudalad. That's why it's as man of Achilas HaPesach. Und der Rebbe kann auch die Achille vom Yudalad, von Tesvav Ir, nicht gerechnet werden als derselbe Mitzvah wie Achille von Pesach Rishon. Bei Pesach Rishon is this man allein a prat und a chelik for the mitzvah, because the mitzvah of Achilas HaPesach is the result of the night, because it's man as Yitzias Mitzrayim. Aber bei Pesach Sheni hat das man Achil allein kein Scheiches nicht mit dem Techen von der Achille. And as the Rebbe says in Order 51, Bechilik ze oisa gam oisa mitzvahs im Dorm Sheni. It makes it two different things. Then the Rebbe goes on, like I'll be something else, like I'll be Noshim Chayobin, and it's not, but that's another discussion. Why not? But it's not again. Well, again, we're not learning the hardest. We're learning more the Pnim, the hardest, which is masber a little bit the Pnim. So by Mela Kumta always that is the Rebbe is adding on, and Sif Dalet and the Kuda Nesefes, the Ikir Shaila and the Sikha was already answered. The Kuda Nesefes, why the Korban Achila of Korban Pesach Sheni is not included in the Achila of Korban Pesach Rishon, because in itself it's also two different Gedolim. Sifei the Rebbe adds on another Nukud as well. Sifei involved. Mit dem wird man echt verstehen, den Din Halal bei Pesach Edition und der Chilik zwischen zwischen Pesach Edition und Pesach Sheni. Von den Chilukim zwischen Pesach Edition und Pesach Sheni rechnet der Mishnah. Hadishin toin Halal b'achilosei, v'hasheni eini toin Halal b'achilosei. Und vier Tuis, aber ze toin in Halal b'asiyos. Auf der Halacha, Hadishin toin Halal b'achilosei b'chulu, stellt sich die Gemara, and the Gemara asks, how do we know that Hadishin is toin Halal b'achilosei? But it says, it says in the Pasuk, Ashir yi lachem kelelis kadesh chag. It's a Pasuk. And Yishai. Laila mekudesh l'chag, ton halal. Laila she'ein mekudesh l'chag, ain't ton halal. Noch, sagt die Gemara, if zeh v'zeh ton and halal basiyoson, but it's my time of why. But it says, Ibo is being that you learned it from the Pasuk, Kilelis Kadesh Chag. In other words, you're talking about Laila b'meile. Boy, say Laila komamai, Yom lo komamai. And b'meile v'balte hakrove. The shechita is by Yom. It's not nismayed from the pasuk Ashir lachem Kilelis Kadesh Chag. It's not Laila, it's Yom. Boy, say you have to Yisrael shecht in the Spain, Spain, and Netherlands, Lulavein, Beinin, and Halal. Shechita is a pesach without Halal. It doesn't make sense. Sagt der Rebbe. Von dem was auf der Unenhal Basiyoson fragt die Gemara Loschen my time. Und nicht mit dem Loschen how do we know? What's the reason? Und sie fragt auf Harischen Tal Hal, wie sie fragt auf Harischen Tal Hal Bachlosse, aber der Gemara ist Menohanimili. So from the Loschen of the Shaila, the difference, how do you know and what's the reason? Und der Fun, and also, was the Gemara emphasis of them in the ersten Teretz, Laila komamait, Yom loy komamait, is muchach, as mit der Schakle Vetarie sucht die Gemara zu Maßen sein, nicht der Mocker, Vetam, Fabos, selber tun halbachas Yoson, for sich. In other words, the question, why do we need, it's not the discussion is, why by see you do need, what's the reason, what's the mocker for that? No, the main point over here is, the Gemara says, my timer, the Gemara doesn't ask me if the Gemara asks me then you're asking, how do you know that the Bezev tone by Gabidasi you need say halal? You must say my timer. So the meaning of my timer really means was bashay der chiluk zwischen Pesach Shchitas Pesach Sheni was daf hoben halal und nachlose was daf nicht hoben ken halal. That's the main reason what the main nikud of the God was Gemara. My timer, not the time of why by Asiya you do. Why by Asiya you do and Achla you don't? That's the Nekudas of the Shai. Darf man verstehen, was? Fragt Taka nicht die Gemara im Namen of the letzten Malachim ton Hal Bas Yosef. Why don't you Taka ask? How do you know you have to? Punkt wie die Gemara punkt in der erste Halacha von Rishon ton Hal Bachilose. Die Gemara asks zum Rani Mili. The second question that is, wie bald die ganze Schale von der Gemara is noch benegeert the time von dem Unterschied zwischen Achilose und Shchitose, as the Rebbe just finished explaining because of the Lashon, the Shini Lashon Gemara. My time and that Ran Mili is for was ever the Gemara in zweiten Titels. If she so let's check the bescheen, wenig name Hallel. In other words, that's a hasbara. Why you do say Hallel b'shchita, but that was not the question. The question was, what's the difference? What are you answering? You're answering me a reason why you say. In dem Hesma gefindt man nicht Chelek zwischen Shchitas HaPesach v'Achalosei. The selbe Shvara can say Lula dem Miyat, without the meat, which is the first tennis, but that's we're talking about the second tennis of the Gemara. Oich ben Gei Achalosei. After Yisrael, Oichlem Pischayim, they don't say Halal. If the Shaila is what the difference, you then answer the difference. Now, order 57 brings what the Sasema says. That's you can say once you say the shchita, you say halal. That's why you don't say by shchita you said halal. That's why the you don't say it by the achila. Afapi as the Pesach Sheni, we also say halal by the shchita and by the asiya. But there is a whole discussion. Who says halal? Vim say halal. Vim say halal. In kanamokim lahadik was it. Sie vorwärts der Bier in dem sagt der Rebbe follows. When Pasuk Ashir Yeh Lachem Kilelis Kadesh Chag lernt man aruis nicht bloß the mir von Laila Shein Kudesh Lachad ein Ton Halal. What do you learn from this? Nor der etzem Geder Hachiyuv von Halal b'shas Achilas Pesach. Das ist nicht wie ich jetzt lieb etzem Achilas HaPesach. You're not saying Hallel because you read it in Korban Pesach. Nor, what are you learning from the Pasuk Leilas Chadish Chag? Not to leave them, but the La Achila is in Leilas Chadish Chag. The Zman HaGeula, as we said before. Und der Nissen, wo ihr Zies Mitzrayim. Und der Fahr sagt man Hallel. Darf man sagen Hallel? Das heißt, wie bald Achilas HaPesach Beleil Tezvov Benissen. Ich doch bepöi, gewähnt verbunden mit der Geule und Nissen von der Nacht, as the Rebbe explained before. That is the reason why we eat the Korban Pesach then, as we say in God. For my high time is that the bestimmtes man von der Mitzvah von Achilas HaPesach. Genau. Ist der Fahr, mechubet der Zman, mit der Mitzvah Miyechedes Shabei, und Hachimiras HaHallel b'Shchatz Achilas HaPesach. In other words, the Korban Pesach of the Pesach Rishon is verbunden with the time, because it's Yetzias Mitzrayim. That's why you say Hallel. Yes, that's what maybe what it means, but that's why we say Hallel side by day by the Shemana Shchita. Besides the fact who says Hallel and side b'Shas Achila, of course the Achila is this man from Yetzias Mitzrayim. Maybe that's a meaning in our 60 start. Der Fund sagt der Rebbe weiter, ist verstanden, ich bin geht zu Pesach Sheni. Wie bald, als in ein Mekudesh L'chag, Lil, Tezvav Eir, ich doch nicht gewähnt, Kindsmann von Nissim. Und der Fahr vermocht nicht kein Chag, ist not a Yontif. Teuchen, Chag Teuchen, und vermocht nicht kein Chag Teuchen. Der Rebbe ist der Achille von Pesach Sheni ein Torn Hallel. Wie bald der Achille Shalatzmo, is not genug as Sibbe to Amiras Hallel Canal. Why not? Because you said it already maybe by day. But Zman HaShchita, as he mentions before from the Sfas Emes. The Gemara goes on, the Gemara says, noch ein Tiris von der Gemara, über Hemschen Zubira now, stellt sich die Gemara, if zeh ton Hallel Basiyosu, und fragt my time. Aber der Gemara ist, was ist der Tam Achillik zwischen Schitas a Pesach mit Hallel und Achillasei on Hallel? Wo soll sein die Schite von Pesach Sheni sein anders von Achillasei? As we said before, the question is not how do we know. We want to know what is the difference. If it's not a yontific day, what's the difference in Schite? Schite is also not in Hallel. The Gemara fragt doch nicht dem Tam von was Schite bechlal ist in Hallel. Warum der Ort of Azah Shaila? Why? It's not over here. You made already Pesach Edition. No, it's not by the Mishnah, but the Mishnah. Sagen dem Din von Hallel bei Schite. In der Friedliche Mishnah. In der Mishnah wird gerechnet nach der Protedinim, in welcher Pesach Edition Pesach Sheni teilen sich voneinander. This Mishnah is discussing what is the difference of Pesach Edition and Pesach Sheni. Über derch Mamela, euch, in was sie gleichen sich, what they differ and what they're equal. In what are they equal? By Hallel, in Hallel, by Schite, und as they weiter, we discussing about the Schite. In fact, the Shaila, kommt the Shaila, my time. What's the reason why by Pesach Sheni is different and you do say Hallel? Not the reason why you say Hallel. Why is it over here equal? Why is it equal, not different? It's different. By Pesach Sheni was the Zman B'Tzis Mitzrayim. Pesach Sheni was not the Zman B'Tzis Mitzrayim. So even by Schite should be this. So why is the Schite difference? Und die Gemara ist im Weiher, als der Geder von Amiras Hallel b'Schitos ist ein anderer wie Achillas Hallel b'Achlas b'Layla. Und die Gemara explains two reasons. Der erste Tier ist Laila Kamamayit, Jem Kalei Kamamayit. Amiras Hallel b'Layla ist verbunden mit dem Tam von der Skadish Chal. Und der Fall ist mit Mamayit Laila von Pesach Sheni. Because Laila von Pesach Sheni is not the Skadish Chal. Aber Amiras Hallel b'Yoyim ist nicht verbunden mit dem Zman mit Zad Atzmoi. It's only that you're making it before the Zman Achila, but not with the Zman. And the Fan is Layimit. In other words, the meat is not some Exeris Akosva meat. It's a Hasbara Dikim. Das heißt, der erste Teretz is Beikir Madgish dem Shini von Miras Hallel B'Yoim Legame Amrossi Balayla durch ein Tama Amrossi Balayla. Und B'Meile is moving mit der Shlila. What is the reason for Amrossi Balayla? Because why? It's this. Why don't you say it Balayla Pesach Sheni? Because it's nismayed. Because it's not the Leilas Kaddish Chag. But Mele is moving with that Shlila. As Amrosi by Yoim is neat with Tzadas Kaddish Chag. The Pasuk says Leil is Kaddish Chag, but Yoim is not as Kaddish Chag. But Mele, it's not the smite. It has nothing to do. By night, you mismight it because it's not a Yontif day, not of the time. Mashenke by day, it's not the smite because it has nothing to do with this Kaddish Chag. Because even Yudalin is not, Yudal Nissen is not as Kaddish Chag. Und der Vater ist nicht da, kein Chiluk zwischen Yom Yudale Benis Pesach Kedishin und Yom Yudale Dir Pesach Sheni. Just like by Yom Yudale Dir Nissen, you say Hallel, even though it's not Leilis Kaddish Chag, same thing Pesach Sheni also. Then the Gemara goes the zweite Tiritz. FC Yisrael Shechten es beschreiben in einem Hallel is matrish. What is this time? Der Tam von Merossi bei Yom. Also Meros Hallel bei Yom ist verbunden mit Schittes Pesach. FC Yisrael Shechten nehmen. Und der Fall ist verstandig, als man darf sagen, Hallel bei Schittes Pesach Sheni, prove wie bei Schittes Pesach Rishon. In other words, it's not possible to be Sheichet the Korban Pesach and not to say Hallel. But maybe the reason is, just like for Pesach Rishon, you say it. Because of this Shchita. Anders is aber Amiris Hallel bei Achilas HaPesach Rishon. Was the Achille Guf is not maspik dazu canal. It's not because they are eating a Korban Pesach. Why are you saying Hallel? Not because you're eating Pesach, Korban Pesach. If that would be the reason, then why not Pesach Sheni as well as the Rebbe asked before? You're eating Korban Pesach. So just like the Shchita, every Yisrael Shechten is beschreven. It's something should also be by Achille. No. The Papa Pesach by Achille is mitzad. Why do you say Hallel by Pesach Rishon? Mitzad the Kaddish Chag. It's a helike Tag. It's a yontif Tag. It's his Mitzrayim. Und der Fall ist bei Achilles Pesach by Tosberg here. Nicht Shaykh and Amiris Hallel. There's not yontif. Mashenk in the Shchita is also by Pesach Rishon, not because of yontif. There's no Yitzis Mitzrayim done yet. That's not Yitzis Mitzrayim. It's beside the Shchita. FC Yisrael Shechten is Mitzrayim. So Pesach Sheni should also be the same thing. Wie Shlema sagt der Rebbe weiter. Als der Chilek zwischen beiden Terutzim ist, Leut Nerzen Teres, ist euch Amiris Hallel bei Shchita verbunden mit dem Zman, mit Yoim. Al derich wie das ist bei Achilose mit dem Unterschied. Was bei Achilose ist der Zman Gufa Asibe, it's Leilis Kaddish Chag. Dagegen, bei Shchitose macht die Mitzvah Shchita dem Zman. Because it's a day that you sheikh the Korban Pesach, so the Zman is created through the Shchita. Durch the Mitzvah Shchita Pesach, is der Yoim ved der Zman Gufa, Azah, the day becomes such a day, was is done Hallel. Over Mela also, Shchita Tzarach Pesach Sheni also. The Shchita creates the Zman. That's what you have to do. Like in zweiten Tirit, is Amiris Hallel nor Mitzad Shchita Pesach. Not the Zman becomes. Efshi Yisrael Shechten es beschreven be'ein Emrim Hallel, but not that the Zman became a specific Zman. It just the Atzim HaShchita creates it. The Rabbi is not invited and afkemina la'alocha between the two terutzim. Again, this is ein kamakomi. We're learning just what says over here. We'll leave it for the orders, for people who learn this for the orders. Al Capone, the Rabbi concludes, is verstandigly beide terutzim. Yes, at the time was Pesach edition Basiyos is done Hallel is not der Fall, was das Zman mitzad Atzmi is azabas macht dem Chiyuv Amira. No mitzad Shchitas HaPesach Shebei, either according to the first teretz, therefore it creates the Zman, or according to the second teretz, it's just the mitzvah, not the creating of the Zman, just the actual mitzvah, is moving, as in them gleichen sich Pesach Rishon and Pesach Sheni, und beide sind tun in Hallel ba'asiyos. And the Rebbe goes on, Sif Ches, Sif Tes in Yud, we must be the Inyonim, Api Pinimis Inyonim. I believe this, and Mitzvah Hashem for others to explain